Hi, I'm Marci Kobayashi, and I'm back again with another excerpt from my book, Finding Yoyu. And if you've been following along, then you know that in the last excerpt, I was sharing how we circled back around to the point in time when we made the decision to move my husband's parents in with us to Tokyo, to move them to Tokyo. So at this point, we are actually still in Hiroshima, and it's near the New Year holiday, and a bunch of family are about to arrive. So I'll jump right in. Since we had arrived in Hiroshima before Akira's brother and his family, we were able to mentally prepare everyone for Okasan's condition. They all arrived around the 30th, just in time to celebrate New Year's. Together, we visited Okasan in the hospital and arranged for her to be released for a few days to enjoy the New Year holiday with us at home. I think we all expected it would be her last New Year's. She had weakened so much since summer. Once we got Okasan home, we made all the traditional foods and tried to entice her to eat. She ate 1 or 2 bites at most. The hospital had been supplementing her diet with an IV. Even so, she was so weak that without help, she couldn't walk the 10 feet from the bed in the room adjoining the family room to the recliner in front of the TV. Okasan stayed awake as best she could. We all stayed nearby watching TV and chatting. One of Akira's nephews brought his girlfriend home with him. They've since parted ways, but I'm eternally grateful that she came that year. Kumi worked in a nursing home and probably felt like she needed a vacation after the holiday was over because she helped me so much. Most importantly, she taught me how to change Okasan's diapers. I could get past the discomfort of smelling her poop and dealing with her private parts, but I felt so inadequate when it came to getting her diapers on. I'm so grateful to Kumi for being there and showing me how. I never did master the art of diapering Okasan perfectly like the nurses, but some of the things Kumi taught me during that New Year holiday made it possible for me to continue doing this for Okasan during subsequent visits home. I have no way to tell Kumi this and wish I could. To any nurse or caregiver out there, I hope you know that teaching someone how to diaper their parent is one of the most valuable gifts. We see little baby bottoms on TV or in commercials, and you kind of know what to expect. Many movies have shown people struggling to diaper their children, making a mess of it, and finally triumphing. We don't have the same visual examples of what it is like to diaper an adult. So thank you, Kumi, wherever you are today. Thank you, you empowered me. Over the holiday, we didn't say much out loud, but quietly made plans for how to move Okasan to Tokyo. Akira's brother was supportive of the new plan. It was clear that there wasn't any other choice. He and his wife couldn't come to Hiroshima any more than we could. To make the plan work, we first had to figure out how to get Okasan from Hiroshima to Tokyo, and at the same time we had to make sure there was a hospital near our home in Tokyo that could accept her. The train would be the fastest, but it required too many transfers, and that would be too difficult in Okasan's condition. A flight wouldn't be much better considering how far the airport was from our home in Tokyo. We finally agreed that first we would all go back to our respective homes as usual, get things ready, and then drive down together a week later to bring Otosan and Okasan back to Tokyo. Okasan still had another week left before her 90-day limit was up at the hospital, so she would be okay until we returned. Otosan would have to be on his own again. In the 2 weeks we had been there for the holidays, Otosan had already started to gain weight again and was looking good. We reminded him how to use the microwave. We also cooked up several of his favorite dishes and left them in the fridge. He loves bread, so we also covered the counter with buns and bread. Otosan assured us that he would be okay. He had survived the last 2 months on his own. Surely he would be okay for the next week. In the morning, on Sunday, January 4th, just before we left for the 13-plus-hour drive back to Tokyo, Spider popped out to visit me. It was hanging out in the downstairs bathroom. Finally! We had been there for 2 weeks and I hadn't seen any spiders. It probably sounded crazy, but seeing this one minutes before our departure felt like confirmation that we were on the right path. There were so many things up in the air about how we would get Okasan and Otosan situated in Tokyo. Seeing this spider reminded me of my totem and that no matter what was going on around me, I had a connection to spirit. I wished Spider well and told her to stay hidden because I knew Otosan would quickly kill her if he saw her. Later that day, on the drive back to Tokyo, Akira and I talked about many different scenarios. Even though we had already agreed that bringing his parents to Hachioji in Tokyo was the best next step, part of me still kept thinking it would be easier if I came back and lived with them in Hiroshima. I'm grateful Akira was 100% clear that we should not be separated. He never wavered. It made it easy for us to stick with our decision no matter how many times I brought up feelings of doubt. Strangely, his consistent stance made me question my motive. I had to do some soul searching to determine why I was making the offer to live in Hiroshima. Was it because I wanted to make a useful contribution to the family? Was I looking for approval? Was I trying to prove that I was a proper or devoted wife? Or was I making the offer because I truly thought it would lead to the best outcome for all and that I was the one best positioned to do it? Yes, 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 and yes. I did want to do right by the family. I'm probably more conscious than most Japanese women of trying to adhere whenever possible to tradition. I don't want to be accused of not being able to understand or follow family tradition simply because of my American upbringing. Oh, well, she's American, you know. She can't possibly understand. So, yes, I would be in denial if I said my offer had nothing to do with approval. However, getting approval was not my main motivation. Rearranging my life to help another family member in need is something we do in my family. It's one of our core values, and I really was the person best positioned to move to Hiroshima. No matter how many times Akira said that it was not necessary, part of me, even today, wonders how different things would have been. It would have been a huge strain on my relationship with Akira for sure. Though I still believe it was a viable solution, I'm thankful it's not what we chose. I don't think it would have been the best for any of us. That is what I remind myself whenever I fall back into the what-if loop. Akira and I got back to Tokyo late on a Sunday night, and there was no time to question our decision. We had less than a week to prepare. We planned to drive back down to Hiroshima again on Saturday, rest on Sunday, and drive back to Tokyo with Otosan and Okasan on Monday. We had 5 days in Tokyo, and finding a hospital for Okasan was the priority. I didn't know where to start, so in the morning I walked over to the clinic a block away. I explained to our doctor the circumstances and asked if he could recommend any hospital nearby that might be able to take Okasan. He suggested Sano Hospital and gave me directions. It was still early in the day, so I started walking. I thought about going back to get my bicycle. Akira would have told me to get the car. I needed the exercise, and besides, I wanted to make sure the hospital was in easy walking distance. I knew that in the coming months, Akira would be busy at the university and visiting Okasan would fall to me. The walk only took about 30 minutes. If Sano Hospital accepted her, it would be perfect. I could visit her and get exercise at the same time. At the hospital, I tried to explain the situation to the clerk at the intake desk. He couldn't figure out what I was trying to do because Okasan wasn't with me. Fortunately, a social worker was on duty and they got her to come out right away and talk with me. She gave me some paperwork to fill out and we agreed to meet again the next day. The next morning, I was updating Akira about my conversation with the social worker at the hospital when the phone rang. It was a police officer from Miyoshi in Hiroshima. Miyoshi was the next city over, at least an hour away by car from the family home. And I'll leave it there as a cliffhanger. Ooh, why did the police call? Can you guess? I'll be back next week with the rest of the story about the police call. Thanks for listening. Bye for now.